Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be updating you all after the election in the USA in November, on November the 5th, where President Trump won. And I'm going to be looking at how things are going to unfold going forward regarding the inauguration, the transitional government, and devolution of governance. I'm also going to be looking at the transitional teams that Trump is putting together. And I'm also going to be talking about the roles of the Galactic Federation in terms of how government looks going forward. So I hope you're going to really enjoy this information today, and we'll just get started. So the first thing I wanted to look at was this issue or this subject around, is there a shadow government in the USA? So first of all, I wanted to ask them what their definition of a shadow government is. And they said to me that a shadow government is a group who puppet the face of politics through bribes and unofficial, unelected power due to their lineage or vast wealth. So I said, do you have a shadow government in the USA? And surprisingly, they said no. And I said, did you have a shadow government in the past in the USA? And they said yes. So I said, so how has this shadow government been removed in the USA? And they said to me that piece by piece, the white hat military have implemented a plan to dismantle the main players of any previous shadow government in the USA, and that the lower tentacles are continuously being disconnected from growing a foothold or any strength going forward. So I said, what about the rest of the world? Does it still operate under a shadow government? And they said to me that in some locations, yes, it does. But to be part of the worldwide military peace plan, then all groups, elites, conglomerates, and monopolies need to be dismantled before their final signatures into the treaties, the plans, and the protocols, so that they can be ratified to the Space Force, who are the ones who maintain the overall implementation of the worldwide military peace plan. So I asked, who is actually running the USA at this time? Is it the Democrats? They said no. I said, is it the Republicans? And they said no. And I said, is it somebody else? And they said yes. And I said, can you please explain that? And they said, at this moment in time, the whole world is enacting or setting up a worldwide military peace plan, which is overseen by the Galactic Federation of Light. They said in the USA, they are currently running under military law since 2016, when President Trump first came to office. They said everything being witnessed by the public is a facade to keep the factions peaceful, as this enormous devolution of power to the people is enacted. They said that benevolent forces who act under the instructions of divine law are overseeing a worldwide plan to bring peace to the people globally, so that there's no more war. They said this is a multi-layered strategy which often seems to run disparate to the goals of peace. They said that many layers and centuries of programming and embedded factions are being prized open and made to face the light. They said a huge karmic shift is occurring, and all karmic debts are needing to be repaid, and there is no escaping this process. Some strong light workers and warriors of light are transmuting huge swathes of karma for the masses, ancestral lineage, and in some cases, other beings on other dimensions. in the USA, powerful warriors are heading up a team under the direction of the Commander-in-Chief, the Q Team, and the Galactic Federation of Light to bring through the karma, the darkness from many layers and factions, and to create a whole new energetic template and wave of light, healing, and peace for the USA. And this healing wave or template for change is being mirrored by the rest of the world as we continue to move forward. So I said, is there still a clear delineation between the white hats and the dark hat players at this time? And they said no. They said the obvious discrepancies between good and evil were sorted some time ago. However, we are now at a point of transition where we need players from both factions to act as a sting operation to draw out the deeply embedded players. And some of Trump's new team have been strategically and tactically chosen to send warning shots to certain factions who still are not operating under divine law. I asked them, what is divine law? Divine law is the energy of allowing free will whilst not breaching any spiritual law. A spiritual law is a law which encourages a soul to act from love and not fear, and that everything that is not love can be considered to be fear. So I said, how will the dark cats be able to undermine peace going forward? And they said to me that with the introduction of quantum borders and the worldwide military peace plan, then countries, nations, and cities will now be able to locate dark hat activity within 100% accuracy. They said to me that despite this, the Galactic Federation are overseeing the development of all future technological advances to allow that their operation can only be used for freedom and peace. So what they're explaining here is that even though the dark hats can be located with 100% accuracy, that the Galactic Federation are overseeing overall how technologies are used so that they can only be used for freedom and peace for those people that are not considered to be dark hats. So I said to them, will the quantum borders under the worldwide military peace plan, will they be the process or system which is used to observe, monitor, and detain these dark hat factions as we go forward? And they said, yes, they will. So then I wanted to know what's going to happen to, the surveillance agencies, like the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, and will they be disbanded? Because in a previous video, they had said to me that the Pentagon is going to be now split into 5 sections, official sections. And what they said to me was that, yes, most of the government and federal agencies will now be disbanded and streamlined going forward as devolution becomes more common practice and as quantum systems and freedom cities become operational. So now moving on to the transition team, the new team that Trump is currently putting into position. I asked them, the new team that's been picked by Trump or is still being picked by Trump, are they the final team for the transition of the government? And they said no. They said the Trump team are really just the operating storefront for the masses. So what they mean by that is the team that Donald Trump is currently showing us at the front That's, again, just a storefront, a story for something else. They said that the real transition, i.e. the transitional government, is occurring behind the scenes as new technologies, which are allowing for devolution of governance, are being set up and secured. I said to them, is this transition team focused on bringing us into the golden age spiritually and constitutionally? They said that the transition team is focused on aligning new technologies with divine law to enable the devolution of governance, and that the Galactic Federation are overseeing the Q team, who are then overseeing this transition team, and that this transition team must create technology, software, and procedures or policies which allow for devolution of governance under divine law. So if you look at this diagram, you can see at the top, we've got divine law. A divine law is the energy of allowing free will whilst not breaching any spiritual laws. And a spiritual law is a law which encourages the soul to act from love and not fear. So at the top, you've got the divine laws, the laws of God, or the laws of the Creator. And underneath that, you've got the Galactic Federation of Light, who are overseeing the Q team. And then below that, you've got this new technological transition team, which are going to oversee the new technologies, softwares, procedures, and policies which will allow for devolution of governance. And then under that, you've got Trump's team, which he's currently putting together, which includes the Department of Government Efficiency. And at this level, they're going to be looking at administrative policies as seen by the public and within official government organizations. So I asked them, when Trump refers to the golden age, what is he referencing? They said that the golden age is a spiritual reference to a time in Earth's evolution where consciousness will be so pure en masse that a transition into collective peace will prevail. In Trump's analogy of the golden age, this is all the above, but also the introduction of a gold-backed financial system which will help to assist the world in its evolution towards world peace and abundance on many levels, including health, well-being, wealth, prosperity, and peace. I said, what can we expect going towards the next inauguration, the inauguration of President Trump, which is set for January 2025? Will there actually be an inauguration? He said to me that there will not be a need for an inauguration in 2025, as the setup and structure of government in the USA is going to radically change. So I said, the role of president, is that going to change? And they said, yes. And I said, do you mean that constitutionally the role of president is going to change? And they said, yes. So I said, so will President Trump continue his role as a president beyond 2025? And they said, after the inauguration date in 2025, a new setup will prevail. So if you notice there, they said after the inauguration date. They didn't actually say after the inauguration. So after the inauguration date in 2025, a new setup will prevail, and President Trump will assume a different role going forward. can you please explain to me how this new setup might look in the future? They said, in the future, the Constitution will require a devolution of governance structure, and as such, the role of president, as we currently understand it, will change constitutionally and publicly. And I said, what will it change to? And they said it will become a role of ambassador. So there will be an ambassador or ambassadors of nations. And I said, so how will the ambassador or ambassadors of nations be elected? And they said to me that the ambassadors will be elected through devolution of governance to we the people. I said, will people like Mohammed bin Salman or Trump become an ambassador of nations? And they said that this title is allocated by the people, and that at this time, that trajectory is unknown. But they did say that someone like Baron Trump would take that allocational role. So that was very interesting. I said, what does an ambassador of nations mean? They said, this is a galactic federation designated role and is essentially a role reserved by the Galactic Federation for people whose role will be to undertake duties to maintain world peace under the worldwide military peace plan. I asked them, what is the timetable for devolution in the USA and going forward for the Ambassador of Nations role? They said to me that devolution will pick up speed during 25 and 26, 2025, 2026. And it's intended that full systems will be operational by 2027. And I said, what do you mean by full systems? They said that full systems means that all financial, voting, communication, and political systems will be devolved. And I said, is this worldwide? And they said, yes. So they seem to be saying that by 2027, that on a worldwide basis, all the systems will be devolved for financial, voting, communications, and politics. I said, will the devolution of governance remove the need for elections? And they said, overall, the structure of government will be radically changed and streamlined, and so elected officials will become something of the past. So I asked them again, will there be an inauguration in the USA in 2025? And they actually said no. I said, is it because it's going to be called something different? And they said yes and no. There will be a different name for the government processes and structures, and it's all changing to reflect how the reporting structures and procedures run in the Galactic Federation. So the roles will become commanders. I said, why will the roles be reflected in how the Galactic Federation is set up? They said roles on the ground will reflect how we use technology to maintain a peaceful worldwide military peace plan, and how we combine everyday societal functions with technology. So I said to them, is this like transhumanism? Is that what they mean? And they said, no. They said it is the combining of consciousness with technological advances to aid humanity in its healing and peace. And it does not require any imposed implantations of technology or actions against societal free will. They said that the Galactic Federation, under the instructions of God allows for free will at all times because this is divine law. So if you look at this diagram, which is explaining how devolution of governance will be reflected from the Galactic Federation, then at the top, we've got the commanders that are in the Galactic Federation. They might be, for example, a commander of world peace, commander of world health, and a commander of world technology. That's how it might be labeled, for example, in the Galactic Federation. And this is mirrored to us as ambassadors of peace, for example, in the USA, or there might be an ambassador of health in the USA, or there might be an ambassador for technology in the USA. So worldwide, you'll have these ambassadors of nations, which effectively will fall under the north, south, east, and west of the world, to create the worldwide military peace plan, which I've been talking about for a number of years. So I said to them, what is likely to happen that could alter, halt, disrupt, or cancel this inauguration of 2025? I'm just asking it from a different perspective. They said that it is anticipated that a new setup will require a change to how the USA is run officially after January 2025, and that this new setup will change how members of society are selected or elected for policy over their personality. So we'll be choosing policy and not people. And devolution of governance is the future, which will render inauguration obsolete. And I said, so will this happen as quickly as January 25? And they said the beginnings of this process to the public will begin to be seen officially in January 2025, and that traditional inauguration processes and government processes will slowly be seen to be changing by the public, and that these are the beginnings of devolution of governance to the people. So I said, these ambassadors, will they be assigned by the Galactic Federation, by Q, by the transition team, or Trump's team? And they said that the ambassadors will be assigned under a combination of all of those things, but they will fall under divine law and direction. So if we look at this diagram around devolution of governance, we've got the Galactic Federation at the top, and they have commanders, generally split into things like commanders of world peace, commanders of world health, commanders of world technology. And this is going to be mirrored to society on the ground in the way that, in the respect that we're going to have ambassadors. So we're going to have an ambassador of peace, or an ambassador of health, or an ambassador of technology, for example. And these ambassadors could be split geographically over north, east, south, west in terms of a military map, which will then create the sections for the worldwide military peace plan. So I said to them, going forward in 2025, what is Trump's new role if he is not going to be officially inaugurated? And they said that whether there is a formal inauguration in January 25 or the beginnings of the new setup for the public, regardless, he will remain the commander-in-chief of his military role within the worldwide military peace plan. They said it is also likely that Ron DeSantis and Michael Flynn will take prominent lead roles as we go forward in 2025, and that they'll both have big roles in the implementation of the worldwide military peace plan. I asked them, how will things unfold for Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy? in terms of unfolding or expediting the rolling out of the Department of Government Efficiency. They said that they will both have key roles in rolling out key concepts of government reform, and that Vivek has strong marketing skills which will be used to move government reforms towards the devolution of governance. I asked them, the Department of Government Efficiency, what key areas will that review? And they said mainly the financial allocations from government to organizations and government departments, and how taxes are paid and assessed. I asked them, Tulsi Gabbard, who is now the Director of National Intelligence, will she be responsible for overseeing and disbanding the agencies like the NSA and the CIA? And they said that Tulsi will be more involved in creating and streamlining policy and procedures to fit into a new devolved governance or setup going forward, and that all aspects of intelligence agencies will be reassessed, restructured, streamlined, and in some cases disbanded entirely. One new Department of Intelligence will be created to run alongside the Worldwide Military Peace Plan. I asked them, in January 2025, regardless of whether a ceremony called inauguration occurs, will military law still be active? And they said yes. They said any government procedures which resemble anything outside of the new setup or the transitional team are a story or a facade, and that military law is overseeing everything day to day in the USA. They said that all government structures, policies, procedures, even some of the Constitution, will be overhauled and streamlined, and it will be rewritten in line with devolution of governance, and that the technological transition team will be setting up all the technology, the infrastructure, and the software to run the devolution setup. The front team, which is Trump's team, will be setting up and restructuring and streamlining all government policy and procedures to fit into the model of devolution of governance. I said, is it still anticipated that this restructuring will create a 4-year pause to government or any pause to government? And they said yes. They said officially government will be paused and halted in its current format to allow for the redesigning and restructuring called devolution of governance. So again, if we look at the diagram, at the very top, we've got divine law, or the law of the creator. We've then got the Galactic Federation of Light, and we've got them overseeing the Q team. The Q team are overseeing a transition team for technology, technological advances, which includes software and procedures. And then they're overseeing the Trump's administrative transition team and the Department of Government Efficiency. So recently it has been announced that President Trump and the upcoming Department of Government Efficiency are also exploring a federal blockchain-based election voting and identity verification system, which they're calling an e-vote, and apparently they're going to use it in line with platforms like X, Cardano, Hyperledger, and Hedera. So I recently talked about this in my QFS is a sting operation video, and I'll put the links to that video below where it explains about Hedera and X.com as a platform for moving forward with the financial setup. So it goes on to say that legislation will federally require all states to implement the e-vote platform to ensure election integrity across all the United States. And according to the source, President Trump insists on implementing a system to eliminate voter fraud as he fears that there will be foul play in 2028. Hedera has already been recognized by the State Department and the White House for their commitment to advance democracy. So I asked them, what will Trump use for election voting and identity verification going forward? Will it be Cardano? And for some reason they said no. Hedera, yes. X, yes. And Hyperledger, yes. I don't know why at the moment they're saying no on Cardano. Maybe that system will be used for something else, but not necessarily the e-vote. So what they're saying is that the e-vote platform will be used so that Trump can do the election voting and identity verification going forward. So I asked, will we be able to vote from our normal mobile phones? And they said, not initially, we won't be able to, no. That the phones will most likely need to be direct-to-cell enabled, and these direct-to-cell enabled phones will then be able to maintain the integrity of the vote. So this is where the quantum phones come in, and this is where the direct-to-cell technology, which is currently being developed by SpaceX, now comes into play. And I talked about that in previous videos. So I said, would Hedera, Cardano, Hyperledger, and X be the platforms to host these, be potentially the platforms that are going to host this e-vote? And again, they said that they would, potentially it will be them. I said, is SpaceX sending satellites to space powered by HBAR? HBAR is part of Hedera, and they said yes. And I said, what can the satellites do when they're powered by the HBAR? They said that when using HBAR, the satellites can effectively manage multiple levels of transactions simultaneously regarding digital or cryptocurrency. So if you want to find out about HBAR and Hedera, then please look in the links below, and I will place the video describing and explaining about the role of Hedera. I said, what is the time frame for going live on this e-voting? And they said it is anticipated that e-voting can begin as early as 2026 and 2027. And I said, and will this e-voting template be mirrored worldwide? And they said, yes. Eventually, all regions that are signed into the Worldwide Military Peace Plan will be in a system of devolution, and technological changes in infrastructure will allow for devolved e-voting by we the people. I also wanted to know if Trump would call a national emergency at any point, and they said yes. And I said, will it be based on illegal immigration and the removal of illegal immigrants? And they said it will not be solely because of this issue, but it may be used as subject to initiate a national emergency. I said, what happens in the event of a national emergency? Is the government paused? And they said yes. And I said, what will happen during such a pause? They said the federal government will be disbanded and restructured, and that layers of government, legislative and policy will be streamlined. They said that e-voting will be set up at the Starlink Starshield level via SpaceX technologies, And once ready to run on the mobile phones via the direct-to-cell technology, then there will be a new setup. They said a transition to government of devolved governance to we the people will then begin. Recently, J.D. Vance was saying that they may withdraw Europe from NATO if they support any censorship of social media. And I wanted to know, is this all part of some sort of worldwide military peace plan? And they said no, that the NATO ban or exclusion is an example of how a measure could be applied under the worldwide military peace plan, but that J.D. Vance, who is representing the USA alone, couldn't make that decision. It would need to be a group decision via the worldwide military peace plan protocols, regulations, and treaties, with all the member states of the plan voting. So what that means is that in the worldwide military peace plan, all the countries are signed in. And if at any point you want to exclude a country from a certain, you want to exclude them from something like banking or internet, or having some kind of protection, military protection, then the rest of the group all needs to vote as to whether that particular faction or country can be excluded or restricted. So what they're saying is that what J.D. Vance is saying could, in the long term, be a way to restrict countries or nations if they didn't abide by the rules and the protocols of the worldwide military peace plan. But in this instance, it's not being used in the way that the worldwide military peace plan is intended to be used in the future. I said, is social media becoming more popular than terrestrial news platforms like CNN and the BBC, for example, in terms of current affairs? They said that the social media news platforms, commentators, for example, Russell Brand, are very popular, typically for the age groups of around 20 to 45 years old, and that the older generation still prefer, on the whole, to listen to the mainstream media. They've said that, however, with social media news platforms becoming more accessible through streaming, then the future of this market is due to expand exponentially. So I understand that Google is currently being broken down because of its monopoly. So they're saying that the Justice Department are gearing up to ask a judge to compel Google to divest its Chrome browser, signaling a significant intervention against one of the tech sector's giants. This move follows a ruling in August by the judge that Google had unlawfully monopolized the search market. So I'll put that in the link below. So I wanted to know, is Google being dismantled, or Google Chrome? And they said that yes, all tech firms, big or small, are being dismantled, streamlined, or closed in the USA, as the Trump team now focus on a new kind of technology which can only be utilized to create devolution of governance. So there is a new layer in the USA setup which is dedicated solely to the future devolution via technology, new innovation, and inventions, and that Trump is overseeing this new group, and it will be uniquely funded. So in this diagram, this is where we have the technological transition team, which falls under Q. So it would seem that all tech firms are currently being, whether they're big or small, are being dismantled, streamlined, or closed, because the Trump team is now focusing on a new kind of technology which can only be used for the devolution of governance. So that's very interesting. So Jack Dorsey is now moving away from working on Web 5 and is moving across to Bitcoin. And I wanted to find out, why is Jack Dorsey doing that? Why is Jack Dorsey winding back on Web 5? And they said to me that Bitcoin is expected to be a big player in the digital and cryptocurrency of the USA going forward, whereas web development at Web 5 and Web 7 is more going to be military focused at this time under Space Force. So Jack Dorsey has been brought into the new transition team, the technological team, the one I just showed you, to help set up the financial aspects of the banking system under X.com. So in a recent video, they started to outline to me that there would be these new technologies that were coming in. And I asked them if they could just tell me a little bit more about, these future technologies. The first one being the time travel portals, or the portals of abundance, which they talked about in my previous video. And I asked them, what is that? And they said, in the future, all beings will be able to instantly manifest their desires by using their consciousness to bring in abundance. And this could be, for example, for better health, for money, for food, for healing frequency, and for medicine. They said, I also asked them about free energy. They said all power and natural resource will be free in the future. And this means electric and water, and there will be power by other means, but it will be free. They also said about space travel, that we will have space travel for leisure, which will include pods and flying cars. So they haven't given me more detail on those issues yet, but they seem to keep repeating about the time portals, the time travel portals, which will bring in abundance, the free energy, and the space travel. So I hope you've really enjoyed all this information today. I'd like to remind you that if you want to book a personal consultation with me, then you can contact me via my website at goldenheavenonearth.net. On the website, I have a blog, a shop where you can buy mugs and books and courses and consultations with me. And you can also find access to healing technologies like RIFE machines, plasma machines, and scalar machines. And it's all under the tab called Healing Products. I also have a tab to activation products, which is everything from magnesium to black seed oil. There's many products there, including Solaris, which helps you to remove nanomaterials and pathogens from your body without creating a healing crisis. So please come and subscribe to me at my website, goldenheavenonearth.net. And to find links to all my other platforms, either look at the information below this video or go to Telegram. Make sure you've actually got my Telegram and not an imposter. And on that channel, if you subscribe, you can then follow all the different links and platforms where I post daily. I'd also like to thank everybody that is supporting me, subscribing to me, donating to me through different means. You can donate at Buy Me a Coffee, or you can donate at my PayPal account. And I look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you.